Welcome to Champions Battlefield, the show where we talk with champions and discuss their story of overcoming adversity. My name's Trevor Carroll. I'm here with Jamak Elshani, and we're going to be speaking this week with Jared the Rebel Ravel, a former BFL amateur middleweight champion and also a 5-1 professional, who's going to be telling us a little bit more about his background, his story, and how he overcame adversity.
Hey Jared, what's up?
What's going on?
Not much, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. It's nice to be here.
Training hard?
Definitely just actually finished the training session now and drove out in the nice traffic of Vancouver to make it here. So
Yeah, I know it's tough. You've got your fight coming up. What is it, in 2 weeks now?
I think it's about 2.5 weeks to be exact. Yeah.
All right. Appreciate you taking the time to come out here and spend a little time with us.
Yeah, not a problem. My
Awesome.
pleasure.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, growing up, where you grew up, what it was like?
Well, I'm definitely from a small town in Carmen, Manitoba.
Nice.
It's right in the middle of Manitoba. Cold winters for sure.
Cold, eh?
I grew up with two parents that were both teachers, so I had a pretty good upbringing. I had lots of opportunities given to me by them. They were very supportive. I had an older brother that played lots of sports, so eventually I got into sports. And it really helped having an older brother that was in sports, because it always made me try and push to be as good as them, right? Meanwhile, I'm playing with people my own age. So
How much older is your brother?
he's 3 years older.
3 years older.
Yeah, he's actually, since I can remember, he's always been like 6'3", 260 pounds. Like since I can ever remember, and he just
big
beat
guy.
on me. He used to beat on me growing up. So, I always attest that to why, like I can take a little bit of a beating, right? Because it
Growing
kind
up,
of
yeah.
made me tough, right? So I had no other choice.
Yeah, what were some of the sports that you got into growing up?
The main sport would be hockey.
Okay,
Growing up
yeah,
in Canada, right? Hockey's that main staple. Our town is about 3,500 people, but we had lots of success with our hockey.
What position do you play?
I played center growing up, but
right.
I did end up playing defense wherever kind of their holes were filled, right? But I played center most of my life,
Nice.
and had lots of success in that. I played basketball, soccer, badminton, whatever was available.
Whatever
to me
came
at that
up, you
point,
just did it,
I
huh?
always played. I wanted to play. I ended up not going, trying out for I guess the different AAA teams and stuff for hockey, because I wanted to be able to still play my basketball. I wanted to be able to play all the different sports as well as still party a little bit, right? So.
So what brought you out west?
I think it was an opportunity. My dad offered me kind of to get away from, the scene I was at. Maybe it was getting a little bit of trouble at the end of my my high school career, right? And my dad kind of offered me a ticket out west to come and try out for a hockey team out here. I always wanted to come out. My goal was to live in California, but this is kind of the next best
It's
thing.
close enough,
Right? It
right?
was close enough. So I ended up coming out. I tried out for the team. Wasn't successful in that, but I stayed out here anyways, and
Yeah.
thought it would be a great place for me to kind of start fresh, meet new people, and kind of be a different person, and get the life I kind of wanted. Right?
Yeah, it sounds like you were leaving a little history behind. What was the story there?
No real over history, but for me, I definitely, I think any small town, you idle hands, right? There's not as much to do, so drugs and alcohol is kind of like the everyday kind
The
of
thing to
thing
do.
for us, right?
Yeah.
And maybe got a little bit carried away with that, and I think everybody does, right? I'm not gonna make it sound like it was overboard at that stage of my life, but I definitely, was getting away from that, maybe starting fresh and starting a new life, right?
Yeah. So what was it like when you got out here? It didn't work for the team. What did you start doing?
What I literally started doing is looking for a job. I wanted to just make money, and I started working, every job I could. Sometimes I was having four jobs at a time, right? And not playing hockey, I kind of still had the itch, right? Because I wasn't doing anything competitive, but did some auxiliary firefighting. I was working at a restaurant, I was working at a hotel, and I was working for the city at one point, right? So I had quite a few jobs, at the same time. And then a friend of mine actually said, "Hey, I'm going to this gym out in Chilliwack. It's called Revolution." And he's like, you pretty much get privates. He's like, they just opened. And at that time we were watching The Ultimate Fighter, and Caleb Starnes was on The Ultimate Fighter.
Oh,
and
yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
and he's one of the coaches out there. He's like, in the last practice I went to, I got a private from him because nobody shows up, right? Because it was a brand new gym out in Chilliwack. This is about, I guess, 12 years ago. So I was like, I'll go, right? And so I went with them, and I remember, a couple classes we'd go to, and I kind of got that itch, the whole like competitive atmosphere, right? And
Yeah.
I never liked to. I've always wanted to be the best at everything I do, no matter what it is, right? If we're sitting here drinking water, I'm gonna
You wanna
drink it
beat
better.
me
I'm
up.
gonna drink better than you, right? So that's just kind of how I am. So I've kind of found another outlet. I remember one of the first MMA classes I went to. I was like, I'm gonna dummy these people. I'm a little bigger and throwing their legs aside, and all of a sudden I'm getting armbarred by some. It was Danny Delask at the time, and he was smaller than me, and I was like, what is that? He's like jiu-jitsu, buddy, and that kind of got me hooked, right? So that's how I kind of got introduced to, I guess,
martial arts
in that aspect, right? And
So you didn't start off with a specific martial art. You walked into an MMA gym and then
what I knew was that it was an MMA gym. I think I wanted more like striking, like the kickboxing, 'cause I had longer limbs and stuff, and I thought I could kick hard and stuff like that, and hit hard, right? So that's kind of what I envisioned when I went there.
yeah.
And then I was like, MMA is kind of all of it, and I wrestled with my brother and friends growing up, so I knew I kind of had that natural instincts, right? But I didn't know what to expect with the whole jiu-jitsu aspect coming into play.
Now, you told me right before we get started, you were saying that there were some slippery slopes in life that you hit. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I definitely...
Is this around the time frame, or are we...
at that time, I was living I was working in a restaurant, and in the restaurant industry, it's, it's party, and I like to have fun, man, and I guess I like to have the best of both worlds. And, at that time, I was definitely an amateur athlete. Right, I wasn't a professional at that time.
Right.
As an amateur athlete, I always believed I could party hard and still be the best, at what I do, right? It's, I didn't feel like I had to make sacrifices to be the best at that point in my life. So, I'd party all night long and then go compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament the next day, and, and I'd win. So for me, I was like,
I can do this all
it,
day.
Right? I got it. So, it eventually got carried away. Like it just was partying at the beginning, right? And I think after a while, I used some of this stuff as kind of a medication for sore bodies after training so much, and then that the weekends turned into weeks, and then the weeks turned into months, right? And then the months turned into just like an abyss of darkness for me, right? And without getting into too much detail, right? I obviously burned my life down. I lost my job. I lost, the place where I was living. I probably lost a lot of, my family and friends' trusts. And it was kind of, broken at that point, right? And I can't say that, because obviously I was doing martial arts at the time. I think I was a purple belt. I wasn't, I'd still went to the world at one point, right? But I wasn't training. I wasn't, I just thought that I could go
you
train
just pull
once
it
in a
off,
while.
right?
I could just pull it off, right? And that's when I would realize I'd go to these world events and I'd end up getting third, or I wasn't the best. And I was
You weren't performing at your
but it was, maybe that was in the back of my head that I was like, oh well, if I wasn't all messed up, I probably could win, right?
Yeah.
And, but I couldn't stop at that point, and obviously my life had kind of unraveled, and I don't like to be told authority or anything like that. I don't like to be told that I can't do something, so. Yeah, I just ended up kind of burning everything down, and until I had no other option other than, looking for me, it was probably either going to be facing some legal charges, either jail or, I'm going to be sent to an institution, or, the worst case scenario, like death or something like that. So for me, the best of the three was an institution, and I ended up going to treatment.
Mm-hmm.
That was about coming up on 6 years ago.
Nice.
And, ever since, it's definitely changed my life. I met a lot of good people, that support definitely a different mentality, right? And I was able to, while I was there, kind of connect the martial arts with, with how I was going to change my life, right?
Yeah. What would you say is the tipping point? Because I think with a lot of, especially younger, not kids necessarily, but youth and in general, when you get into that downward spiral, we always hear once you've hit rock bottom, there's no way but up, but it just seems like there's further down, right? You just, whether it's addiction or if it's, mentally, you kind of go in that spiral. What was the thing that kind of, for you said, this is it, I've had it, I got to change something in my life?
Oh man, like I know that there was like a point of like where I felt like I was literally like on the run for like 3 days, and it was probably the worst time of my life, right? The most
Yeah.
emotional. I was so broken, and like I remember saying, like, I used to wake up every day. To be honest, I used to wake up every day. I'd look in the mirror and I'd be like, okay, so today's the day I'm changing. Like
Yeah.
everything's changing, and like within 2 hours, like that
It's
was
back.
all. It was back. The game was on, right? And
Because if it was easy, nobody would ever be in
yeah,
trouble, right?
I just, I'd access and the ability to keep doing it, and I felt like I was smarter than the rest. I was manipulating everybody. I was able to kind of uh, pull the wool over everybody's eyes, like master manipulator, and everybody. I still had a job at that point for a while, right? And I'm winning tournaments. I'm doing all these things, right? So it's a lie to myself, right? And
Were you denying it, basically?
oh, for
right?
sure, right?
Yeah.
Justifying everything, and but clearly, like my life was. Yeah, it was the worst time of my life for sure, right? And I obviously hurt a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was like in that moment when I obviously, it was my rock bottom, and I actually had all these people that band together and supported me, realizing that even though I truthfully like fucked up, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I screwed a lot of stuff up and I hurt a lot of people, but those people were still willing to help me out. It means that I obviously, I'd done something right in my life, and that the people were banding together, and it showed me a lot of love. And and for me, I realized that I had so many people behind me, and that's kind of like the whole idea behind like what I stand for today is, it's like I'm not just doing it for myself. I kind of do it for everybody that supports me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one of my favorite lines that I've been hearing recently is, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000, right? It's that Michelangelo says that, right? And it's all about representing all the people that have invested in me. And there's a lot of people that, to this day, like even my success that I've had, like now I own a gym,
Right.
next up I'm, professional athlete, fighting for a title coming up here soon, right? And
Mm-hmm.
with all that comes all the people that have invested in me, and like I don't feel I owe it to them to give my best every day, right? And
Right.
I'm able to do that now that I have a lot of that behind me, and I got the people in my corner, right?
Just going back to your early, like your childhood and stuff, did you have role models growing up, like sports athletes? You said you were into hockey and stuff. Were you?
I'm always into whoever the greatest in their sport is. Like I'm obsessed with greatness. Like when it comes down to it,
Yeah.
I study everybody that's great. I want to study. I want to see what they do, what they're doing differently than the other people, and I'm on their heels, always trying to be that person. If I'm not the best, I'm on their ass trying to be the best, right? That's the way I've always looked at it. And
So did it translate into something when you were having your problems? Like at that point in your life, did you have role models that could help pull you out of your
at that
weapons?
point, like I was lost, man. I didn't. I'll be honest. Like I thought to myself, like I was really good with money beforehand. I was saving things up, and I was like, after a while, I was like, what am I saving for? What am I like? You could die
Yeah.
tomorrow, right? Like, what is this all about? Why am I trying to be the best at everything? Why can't I just like
You start questioning
question?
everything.
And I just like, and I became comfortable with like, just living. Like I was like, oh, I'm living the moment, right? I'm just partying
Yeah.
today, right? It's like, like who cares what's, but like it was the wrong idea. I had no concept of what my life was supposed to be, right? And like today, I actually have that, and I want a better life, and I want to
Right.
be. I actually want to do the things I say, right? And I
Yeah.
have some integrity in myself, and and I'm grateful for the people around me. So I need to show that. It's one thing to at that time I'd be like, oh, I'm grateful for my family and stuff, right? And I'd say all those things, but I never like showed it, right? I think gratitude is something that you do with action, right? And
Right.
I didn't have any action following through with any of my statements beforehand, right? And
At
How do
this
you?
point now, at this point
yeah.
now, do you have role models now that,
I
or are you
definitely do
yourself?
actually. What's crazy is like growing up, I always like not hated on my parents. Like I didn't look at them as role models, right? Because I was like they're always telling me I can't do this and can't do that, and my grandparents and my parents are definitely huge role models for me, right? They, have done nothing but give me opportunities. They're great people. They're always helpful. Um, anybody like ever needs help, like at a drop of a dime, like my parents would be there for you, right? And that's like the type of person like I know I am, right? And I am today, right? Because like for me, that's just what it's about. Is like if I need help, people help me, right? And So, you know, I'm not going to be one of those people that just take. I'm not going to be a leech in my life. And I want to be somebody that is reciprocal in all relationships, right? And that's like, for me, that's what I've realized. My parents were both influential in my community. My dad, you know, ended up leaving teaching to go be a principal at an all-native school in Winnipeg. And at that point, he was literally, because they would all be flown in from the reserves, and there was a couple hundred students, and he ended up being like all their father, like their father
Nice.
actually gave a shit. And you know, he would, like, I kind of resented him for a while because I was like, he spent all his time with those kids, and I was like, what about me? You know, I'm like I got my own struggles, but he gave me like everything I ever needed, right? And he was there to like punish me, right? That's what I look at, like, oh, right, you know, got upset about, but really, like, he gave me everything, all the opportunities in the world. And yet he was also helping.
So he's sort of like a
Hundreds,
mentor, somebody
Yeah,
that you
right?
look up to now.
And that's like truthfully what I want to do. Like, whether or not I realized, like, sure, I want to be the best, you know, in the martial arts, but I think that's kind of like, you know, your initiation into like in the whole martial arts world, right? It's all about a lifelong kind of journey
Yeah.
of different things like dedication, you know, sacrifices, and at the end of the day, it's all about service, right? And that's
Right.
giving back. Like, now I'm gonna race back here after to go teach kids class, and
Right.
the fact that I got all these parents coming to me like, "Oh, you're our kid's biggest mentor," you know, that means the world to me, right? Like, you can't.
And it's also more responsibility as well now.
Yeah,
right?
right. But like, sure, like I truthfully enjoy like the moment of me fighting and then like and after and everything. Like, there's not many feelings like that, right? But it's everlasting when you have somebody that looks up to you and you can be a positive change in somebody else's life, right? Whether it's through fighting or not, right? And I find that the fighting kind of gives me that cred, right? Because a lot of kids know, oh, he's badass, right? Like, let's listen to him, right? So, you know, that's just kind of where my life has been headed.
Yeah.
And I kind of had that kaboom a couple years back when I was like, why do I want to be the best? Like, what is it about, you know, like, what do I really want out of my life? And, you know, do I want to just be fighting in the UFC? And that's not like, obviously that's a goal of mine. That's a goal of mine to be fighting at the biggest stage and the best people. But at the end, that's not like, I don't want to get there and then be like, oh, what's next? Like, I already know what's next. I'm going to be influential in tons of people's lives, whether, you know, it's me doing this or something else, right?
What's when you? Couple questions for you.
Yeah.
One, let's take them one at a time. That way
Yeah, I
we're
get a
not.
little carried away, right?
So when you're no, that's all good. So when you were talking about kind of climbing back up, getting
Yeah.
out of that hole, you mentioned that you found how martial arts could complement that that journey out of
sure.
there, right? Were there some specific things that you had learned, whether it was sort of physical survival or discipline or whatever, that you had learned through your past martial arts experience that kind of started to help you, work your way back up?
Well, I think like the biggest thing I learned is like somebody said to me once, they're like, because when I was actually in the treatment center, I ended up teaching people jujitsu. So that was pretty cool how they allowed me to do that. And I wasn't quite grasping the whole concept of how I was supposed to change my life in that moment, because I was just thinking about it. I was like, I'm not good at this. I don't think I can do all these things. And, you know, I can't get to that point. And they just pointed out, they're like, oh, did you ever think that you'd teach people jujitsu? And I was like, well, no.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, so like, what did you do first? And I was like, well, I showed up to class, and you know, and I learned from an instructor, right?
Yeah.
So like, okay, so why don't you do that with your life? Like, show up,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Start, you know, like learning and progressing and finding ways that you can be, you know, get to those points, right?
Yeah.
And through that, you start gaining knowledge, right? And eventually, what you start doing when you have that knowledge, there's people around you that don't quite, and you're going to start sharing it with them. Right, and that's how you start kind of giving back, and you start learning more yourself when you're able to like, when you see somebody else struggling with something, and you can show them the way.
Right.
You kind of reinforce for yourself that it does work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then bam, right there, that's like
it has a positive impact
yeah, it
on
does,
your
and
own.
then it has a positive impact to my own life. Even though I just helped them out, they're like, oh yeah, thank you so much, right? But it really helped me a lot more, and so I was able to kind of use my martial arts to kind of help my life out and kind of understand my life better, because I couldn't articulate the martial art part. I didn't articulate like how I got to that point, right? Somebody just kind of showed me that the ability to articulate it, and that changed, you know, my viewpoint on life and martial arts, kind of bringing it together, and how it could really affect me in a positive way.
Yeah. The other thing that along the same lines is a lot of people who are not fans of martial arts, MMA specifically,
Yeah.
when I talk to them, they always talk about, oh, you guys, you people get in there and beat the crap out of
Yeah.
each other, and how is that healthy? How is that good for anybody? And they fail to see the level of dedication and discipline that it takes for an athlete, for a human being to be able to get into the stage, to get into there, close the door behind them and face another human being and go through that battle, right? And when you were just talking about kids and how these kids look up to you, these are the parents that are talking to you. These are parents that are already sold on the concept that martial arts is good for their kids, right? With the experience that you have and that you've gone through yourself, and you also see other children go through on
Yeah.
a regular basis, what would you say to a parent, to someone who says, oh, martial arts is rough and it's just for people, for thugs, and they,
Well, at the
just
end of the day, like I look at martial arts, martial arts. I think
Right.
we're all artists, right? And
Mhm.
in each one of our things, just like a painter paints and a singer sings, right? And
Right.
it's all that form of expression, right? And I'm able to express myself, in martial arts, right? And some people are rougher than others, but that's the natural of humanity, right? Like,
Right.
some people are more graceful and able to, like when you watch certain people, fight in the octagon, like
Mhm.
it's like it's like so graceful.
That's
Right? And
right.
some
Yeah.
other people, yeah, like they're super aggressive, like that's their style, right? And that's how they're expressing themselves. And I don't think anyone's, to throw a judgment on that, right? Like kind of needs to stop in that
Yeah.
aspect. Everybody has their own opinion, and
Yeah.
they can and then go from there. But I believe, like whether it's jiu-jitsu or martial arts, I believe if everybody did it, the world would be a better place, right? 'Cause
Right.
it's very humbling to go in to a situation like, let's just take jiu-jitsu for example. So you and I, we shake hands, we're about to roll.
I'd never
Uh,
roll with you when I'm scared.
But at that point, like you're gonna learn so many things, and I personally have to control myself. Yeah, sure, maybe I could just destroy you and go
Right.
in there, but that's like a raging ego where I have to check that and realize the same point. Like I can make it an experience for you as for me, and it becomes like I just came from MMA sparring. Like
Mhm.
it's a truly intimate thing when you're punching somebody else and you're going balls to the wall and literally trying to kill someone, and then right after you're able to be like, amazing round, bro, and like it's
Yeah.
like true sign of respect. Like I've seen people playing chess and after they're like, fuck you. Right?
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think I've learned so many positive attributes in my life through martial arts.
One of
So
the biggest things I think is like respect, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
at the beginning, you didn't really have respect for yourself when you were going through that tough
course,
time
man.
with yourself, right? And
Or for
now-
anybody else,
or
for that
anybody
matter.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally right. Yeah, and now you've found that respect not only for yourself but for other people, right?
Yeah, I took it for granted before, right? Like even when I started, I was still young, and I didn't quite grasp the whole concept, right? And it took a big shift in my life for me to kind of eye open up to that, and I realized like through that I want to take on myself to help other people when I see people struggling, to be that kind of that switch for them, right? So
Mhm. Well, it's like I remember the very first time I had someone bigger than me on top of me.
Yeah.
I felt like I was drowning, It's like, oh my God, what the hell? This guy can't move, I can't breathe, and you get into that state of panic. But then you slowly learn that I'm okay. I can handle myself here. And in life it's the same way, right? You get into these situations, and if you panic, you're gonna lose everything, right? But whereas if you kind of gain your composure and say, this is another situation, another challenge, I'm gonna handle it. I know how to handle this, right?
Definitely.
So
I think a
yeah.
huge thing that I've learned is like one of the biggest things is like teaching self-confidence through self-defense, right? Like at
Oh
the
yeah,
end of the day, right? Like
absolutely,
it's to give somebody the confidence to be themselves and to feel comfortable in their own skin is like truly one of the greatest things out there, right?
Yeah.
And so when I see that in students, like at a school, like at our school, like sure there's competitive athletes and stuff like that, and you're going to train those people a little differently, but not everybody that does martial arts is competitive, right?
That's right. Yeah.
A lot of people, there's so many different facets, whether it's just to get in shape, build some confidence, to learn something cool, to have fun, and and meet a group of people, right?
community
there's definitely a
aspect of it.
community, a brotherhood. and it's amazing to see, right? It's kind of like that everybody knows your name, the cheers thing, right?
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
comes, and it's a great place to be, right? And a bunch of like-minded people that want to advance themselves and to better themselves, right? So, I think everybody should be involved in some
Absolutely, yeah.
form of martial arts, and that's just my opinion. I wish I would have started when I was younger. I didn't start till I was 21, but that's I was fortunate to play sports and stuff, but this is really geared towards the whole betterment of thyself, right?
Mm-hmm. How many kids do you teach now?
We've got about 150 kids
Wow.
at our
It's
gym,
a
right?
big
So, it's pretty wild, and
all
it's,
ages.
yeah,
Wow.
all ages. We start at 3, so we have like
3-year-olds.
man, like I'm going back at 3:30, and it's our first class
Awesome.
is 3 to 5, and it's like now we got like 20 kids in that class. Like probably got like 40 like that are signed up in that specific class, but 20 show up on a regular basis,
Yeah.
right? Like on the days, and like it's a unique experience, right? And then we have a class right after that, 6 to 8-year-olds. Then we go from 9 to 13, right? And it's it's a really cool thing to see the shift in some kids. Like, I remember like we got this one kid, and we actually used him in one of our videos. Is like he came to us, and I remember he like looked at me like I was so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just blank stare. He wouldn't listen. He wouldn't like move
Yeah.
for so long, and like just to put that energy in. And now he's like one of our ideal students, and he's like his dad's like so over the moon. Like he'll say everything great about, like he's the guy that you want to get on video to talk with,
Yeah.
to talk about our gym, because like it's
The kid's grades went
it's
up and
changed
his-
his
yeah.
whole life. Like it's gone for everything about him. Like he looked so miserable about about everything, and like wouldn't even like respond to you. I'd be like, "Can you hear me?" Waving at him, right? Like, so just to see those changes means it's working. It reinforces the
Awesome.
fact that like what we do is positive, and it's creating a better community, if not a whole world.
Right, and it doesn't mean that kid has to grow up and become a fighter, right?
No,
So
not
he
at
can go
all.
become an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever his thing is,
Yeah,
right?
that's the farthest thing from what we teach on a regular basis. Yeah, we do have classes geared towards
Competitive.
professional fighting,
Right.
stuff like that. Right, that's a small clip, but it's obviously something I enjoy. But I think it's the purest form of competition. I'm a hardcore competitor, like I told you about the water earlier.
Yeah.
But I think that's like one of the purest forms, right? And
Yeah.
I had to test myself the most, so I enjoy doing that. I don't tell everybody they have to do it. If they
Yeah.
want to do it, I'll support them. But I'm not gonna to force anybody to do it. I'm not gonna tell them they should do it.
Yeah.
I definitely like people to like something like jiu-jitsu. I think they should definitely like give it a try, right? It just the whole competition aspect, putting yourself in a situation where you got to test yourself. I think that's key in life. I think it teaches you lots of valuable life lessons, right?
Yeah, one of the things I hear a lot lately is how kids that are, because of the way our society is now, a lot of kids are, privileged. They don't have to work hard for anything. They're kind of fed, and everything is provided for them, electronics, computers, screens, everything's there, right? So as they grow up, because of the fact that they've never faced any real sort of adversity, they kind of get themselves into trouble in that whether they're trying to find something to excite them and they're doing crazy things, or they just can't seem to, because life has challenges, right? You don't. No adult goes through their life and says, "I'm not gonna have any challenges. This is the perfect."
Unless you live your life so like boring and so cautious. That, like,
even at that, I don't know, right? It's like you walk through the street and there's things that come at you, right? So, do you see that the kids because martial arts is not easy, you know, you put yourself through that adversity sort of voluntarily, right? You allow somebody to crawl up on top of you and feel that pain. Do you see that the kids that come through, or even young adults, teenagers, early 20s that come through the gym and maybe have an ego on them, chip on the shoulder that, I can do anything, and then once they've had to tap out a few times and feel humble.
It can be a very humbling experience for sure. Not everybody takes losing the same way. Everybody's different, so I think it's a case by case basis, and that's unfortunate because sometimes you read the play wrong, and then you might somebody might be distasteful towards the sport or something like that because just the way they handle failure, right? And I think failure is so important in life. I think for myself, I used to be very cautious. I used to always want to win. I used to everything I did, right? And I think one thing we kind of talk about is like your first major loss, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like my first loss in jiu-jitsu matches. It wasn't until like I had quite a few, right? And
Yeah.
I was just devastated, right? But I was able to kind of get over it because I've had competed so many times, and I think as in my amateur fighting career, I was even in hockey growing up, like I was definitely always on the winning side of
Yeah.
everything. I've always been very fortunate in that aspect. I've lost. I'm not telling you I haven't lost. And in my amateur career, I think I had 5 fights, and I hadn't tasted defeat, and feeling pretty invincible. And then like the worst thing possible happened. Is,
Oh man,
I had a
I
title
don't know
fight.
if we're thinking about the same thing, but that
Yeah.
was Trevor probably remembers
was,
too. It was it's one of the scariest moments
Yeah.
in me. I've watched probably more than 300,
Like,
400 fights.
check this, and so my mom, like she's not a big, like she loves jiu-jitsu, right? And because she knows that my pretty face can't get messed up, right? So she loves jiu-jitsu and supports me in that. But the one thing, like she supports me in whatever I do, right?
Yeah.
But if she could have her way, like she wouldn't want me fighting MMA.
Yeah.
And so I think it was actually my 6th. I think my 7th fight maybe as an amateur. Sorry, I'd won 6, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, just watch. Like, come on, watch me.
It's a
Yeah.
rematch too, because
Right?
you beat him
It's a
before.
rematch. I was like, I've already beat this guy, Mom.
So
I was
she's
like,
there live.
No, because she lives
she's,
in Manitoba.
yeah, so she's watching.
They got the pay-per-view, right?
Yeah.
And her and my dad hadn't watched a fight of
Oh
mine
my
yet, and
God.
so they're like, that's their first fight. And I remember, man, like. I remember waking up actually.
Wait.
Just
So,
let everybody know what
no.
happened.
Wait. So
Yeah.
people, Trevor, can we hear your version of what happened? Because I mean, I was sitting.
I'll tell us straight up what happened. So so obviously I started out. I thought that there was like a 1 in 10 chance that I could be beaten, and it was kind of the perfect punch. And Buddy landed the perfect punch. He came with this wild like lead push kick, and I backed up expecting the overhand right, which he normally throws, and he just made that right space for the uppercut.
Oof.
And just caught me right in the button, and I just went down like a bag of bricks and didn't, I guess, wake up for
For a while.
a while, I guess. Everybody
It was a
sounds a little
long
different.
time.
People,
It
like,
was scary.
some of my people are like, we thought you were dead. And I'm like, obviously, like, it wasn't scary for me because I was out.
You
cold,
were
right?
out.
But I guess, I kind of came to in the ring. I don't remember
Yeah.
that at all. What I do remember is coming to on a stool, and I was like, why the hell is there an oxygen tank? And I was like, and then I'm like, why are there paramedics? And I'm like, and I look up and I see some of my my cousins and my aunts down there. And I'm like, what
This
the fuck?
worried look
And
on
all
their
of a
face.
sudden, it just like I had so much emotion, and like, yeah, I cried like a baby. I was like, like at that moment, I was like, I lost my fight. I was like, you know what I mean? Like that was like, what the hell? Like, you know what I mean? And I remember being like, obviously, I think I was a little bit rude. I was like, I want to shower, just get like, they're like, no, you need to sit out. I was like, and I remember, so they took me to hospital. I remember, I guess I was just talking gibberish the whole way. And my buddy gets in the, like, one of my longtime training partners getting in the ambulance with me, and he said I was just talking like shit, like I was just like rude, and I was just like
It wouldn't make
obnoxious.
sense.
And all of a sudden he said, I just asked, I was like, give me your phone. And he's like, who are you gonna call at this moment? I was like, just give me your phone.
Yeah.
It's like, dial this number, and I told him to dial my mom. And I remember it was like, obviously I'd done this a few times where you mess out of your tree, and all of a sudden you talk to your mom, you're like, oh, hey, Mom, how's it going? And he's like, acted totally normal, right? He's like, it sounded
Nothing's
so
happened.
weird. It's like, yeah, like, oh, no, it's all part of the show, Mom. It's like, it's like all part of the show. I'm totally fine, right? I'm just going to go get checked up. Things are all good. She's just like,
It's part of
like
the show.
terrified, right? And, obviously, I was in a lot of, losing. Like, let's get back to the whole idea. Is like that was,
But so from the outside, like us watching and talking afterwards, we didn't know if you're gonna come back. I mean, I don't mean
Yeah.
wake up. We didn't know if Jared was gonna be back, if
Yeah.
it's gonna be the same caliber of fighter, if you're gonna be timid,
Yeah.
towards. And I remember the next fight after that. I don't remember exactly who you fought, but I remember
Micah Braco,
Micah, right?
yeah.
I remember you literally sat there, and there was this sigh of relief after you had
That was
won,
probably
right?
that was probably one of the most emotional moments in the ring for me, the octagon for me is that right after, like the ref stopped and I just kind of rolled over and I was like, man, I was like, it felt so good. Like I started very timid and it took a few fights. I was still kind of timid.
So what was it, Jared? What was it that, again, like, that's adversity. That's for a profession.
So for me, I'll be honest. Like after that, I went through probably 2 months of like depression, just to be honest. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was severely concussed, right? And, I could barely walk up the stairs without in pain. And, I'm going to give a shout out to a guy named Dan Boss. It took me a long time to get to see him, but he's like a witch doctor, man. That guy definitely fixed me up. He knew that I wanted to continue. And I did a lot of things. Like I reached out to people, Hans used to be a champ in the amateur, and he had a tough knockout. One of his first losses was a knockout loss, and so I reached out to him. I'm a good buddy of his, and asked him kind of what he went through. And I reached out to people kind of before me, and talked to a lot of people I look at like role models, right? And I asked for their opinion. It's not like I went strictly for one person, right? And I asked a group full of people their things, and then I kind of internalized it myself, and I realized that's not going to define me. That one knockout, like, sure, it's an awful loss, and I hate to have it, and I cringe when I even think about it. But that doesn't define me. It's like how I come back that will define me, and right. And I think having let's backwards like to the situation where like I was at the lowest point of my life, and I'd hurt somebody really bad, and I was talking to them, at the worst moment of my life, and they said to me, it's like, Jared. As somebody that hurt so bad, like at that moment, I was like, I would never talk to that person if I was in his shoes, right? Like that's the way I looked at it. I was like, I thought there was no possible way. And he said to me, he goes, this will not be the thing that defines you. This will be the thing that makes your life amazing. And it was like, that was like the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders, right? And I've used that, to this day. That doesn't mean it's okay to lose. That's not what I'm saying. Like I'm not okay with losing. Like I don't want to lose, right?
Right.
But I will come back, 100 times, stronger after, right? And I had to use that and sum up that kind of mentality after a loss. And I had to, I was going to be damned to show people that, that wasn't going to be the one thing that defined me. And I wasn't going to let that, stop me. I wasn't going to let that be, my story, right? And, I want people to, when they remember me, like when I'm gone, like to be like that guy, like persevere. That guy,
he got through that.
Yeah, he stood up for what he believed, and he believed that achieving greatness, still has failures, but he doesn't quit after that, right? And that's a huge part of what I stand for, is not quitting and not letting something scare me, right?
Yeah, if there's someone watching this or listening to this, and they're at the lowest point of their life, and they feel like get up every morning saying, this is it, this is the last day, I'm going to turn this around, and they just can't do it. They just, they're trying hard. Maybe they don't have the loving energy and support that you had around you when you were going through it. What would be your advice? How can they break out of that situation?
Well, for me, man, like, I'm always going to be biased. I'm always going to steer people towards martial arts. I think that's, it's a beautiful art. It's something that truly, has been a pillar in my success. I wouldn't say it's the only thing. Like you could say it saved my life in some aspects, but at the end of the day, like I had to have other things in play. Like I never want to put just like one stilt. Like I don't want to just use martial arts to be the only thing in my life.
You're not one of these jiu-jitsu saved my life kind of guys.
Well, I'm like it's a huge part of it, man. It's like it's one of the founding pillars for sure. But a house isn't built on just one pillar. Do you know what I mean? Like you have to have other aspects involved. And and naturally my friends have become people in the martial arts, so that's another pillar. But like my family and like I had other things in my life that had to help hold me accountable, right? And then just one thing, right? Because I remember like if I got injured, all of a sudden then I'm gonna burn my life down again because now I can't do the thing.
Can't do that anymore,
can't do the one thing that saved my life. So I had to realize that. And
it can't be one dimensional.
Go from there. So I would just say that it doesn't matter if you don't come from, a situation where there's lots of loving people around. There are just resources out there. Doesn't matter where you come from. Doesn't matter what you got. There's resources out there, like especially in North America. There are places to go, like right in Canada especially, right? Like there's places to reach out. There's people that want to help you. that have nothing to do with you.
So
We
get
have
a good group of people.
we have a lot of
support
people
around
around.
you.
Like there's people out there that are always willing to help you, whether you're homeless or not. There's always resources like around right now. People that want to help somebody that's in need, right? So just open your eyes, I guess, at that point and reach out. Like that's the biggest thing is be willing to ask for help. And that's where a lot of people struggle. That's where I struggled. I never wanted to ask people for help because I didn't want people to think less of me. So I had low self-esteem.
The ego
Literally,
thing, right?
I did. Like people were like, "Oh, I was too proud to ask." That's called false pride, and you have low self-esteem, and that's what I had. I had low self-esteem. At the end of the day, I wasn't willing to ask somebody for help, and the reason was because I didn't want them to think I needed them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's low self-esteem.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, throw that aside, get some humility, and ask somebody for help. Because people are willing to help you, and you will be able to crawl out of whatever dark circle. And there's like my story. I don't look at my story as being like this like death-defying thing. Like there's like every time I think about it, there's always a worse story. There's always somebody that comes from more struggle. There's always somebody that's having a harder time out there in the world, right? So that's what I always hold on to whenever I'm in a bad situation. I realize there's somebody else that's done better than me, right? That somebody else has crawled out of a deeper hole, right? So reach out, find something you love, and fucking do it.
Right.
As long as it's healthy.
Awesome. Next chapter of your life, you're obviously looking to get into the UFC. We've you were trying out for the Ultimate Fighter. Some of that stuff fall apart. Don't want to go into that detail of that stuff, but
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about why that's important to you, along the same lines of obviously good money, success, and all that stuff.
At the end of the day, I just want to compete against the best. I want to challenge myself, to the best of my ability. If I fight the best before that and I lose, then at least I got to fight the best of my ability, and I got to challenge myself. That's really what it's all about. I want to challenge myself against the best, against see where I stand, push myself to the limit, and that's what I'm looking for. Like UFC is something cool. It's it's obviously a goal. It's obviously something because it is the pinnacle, right?
Right.
But for me, I just want to be fighting the best. I want to.
You want to test yourself against the best,
right? I want to see what I'm made of, man. I want to. I crave that. Like whenever I, have a situation like maybe I'm an adrenaline junkie or something of that nature, right? Like I always, whenever I have a little bit of doubt on something, like I just want to hit it head on, right? And that's kind of how I live my life today. I don't want to have any what ifs or regrets, right? So.
Plus, it gives you a bigger platform, right? If it sounds like you have a message of.
That's the huge idea, right? Like behind it all. At the end of the day, like I believe I can hang with the best of them and make it exciting and do all those things. And then through the end, like I'm going to use that as kind of my voice, right? And be able to share my message on a broader stage,
and inspire
right?
a lot of people. Lastly, we know you have a fight coming up against Chris Anderson.
Yes,
we kind of mentioned that at the top. He's a champ at welterweight. He's coming up to face Jared Ravel. Are you preparing any differently? Whatever you can share. We don't want to really talk fights here.
Obviously for me, like he thinks it's a great fight for him. I think it's a great fight for me, right? That's what it comes down to.
It's awesome for the fans.
I hope he thinks it's a good fight for so he's bringing his best, right? Obviously, I believe I'm going to put it on him. He's not going to be able to handle me. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Right, and he should feel the same way. When it comes down to it, like we are like meeting at a catch weight, I guess, of 180 for the middleweight title, right? So I'm kind of dropping down, and he's fighting at 180, which he's been fighting at. So that's the way I look at it. But I'm excited, man. It's
should be a good
huge
fight.
test for me. It's a huge test for me. He's undefeated. As a pro, he's tough as nails, and I'm super excited. Actually, like my whole team, we all enjoy watching. Like we always enjoy watching the guy fight. So for me, I always wanted to fight those. I always wish I could make. I think even Trevor will avoid yell. He's like, "Hey, can you make 170?" He's like, because there's nobody in the 185 division. And I was like, I wish I could make 170. I can't quite get all the way down there, right? But it just seemed like a deep pool at 170, right?
Huge.
But when I realized they're all fighting at 180 for this, like with the new weight, I was like, I can make that, and like it gives me an opportunity to fight a lot of really good guys because
test yourself against a different sort of group of people.
Because like I have throw my hats off to a lot of those, like they're good, right? And like that's who I want to fight. I've my last couple of fights haven't, always been against the toughest guys, but they're the guys that say yes to a fight with me. So I don't know, like,
So what else are you gonna do?
I'm trying to get, trying to get top caliber guys, right? It's not always the easiest, right?
Yeah.
So
Awesome, man. We want to thank you again and let you
Yeah.
get back to training. Thanks, brother.
awesome, man.
Take
Thank
it
you.
easy.
Appreciate it,
Yep.
guys.